So, good evening to you all. Welcome to a slightly less than professional live stream number 33. We delayed this particular live stream uh, for the World Cup. So, we know now that the World Cup has finished. The Argentinians, I think, have won. I would have preferred the French to win, but that's just my opinion. Um, don't really talk about that tonight. So we're going to be talking this evening about old Korean and Malaysian cars and other things, of course. Old Korean and Malaysian cars are something I've wanted to have on my channel for some time. I think I had a fascination with them well before I started doing YouTube. And the first few that I tended to get on were things like the Proton Savvy, the Daewoo Nexia, two of them, the Daewoo Sparrow, three first generation Hyundai Elantras, a second generation Hyundai Elantra, a Kia Pride, Hyundai X2 Pony. We've had all kinds of weird stuff on the channel like that, and I quite like that sort of thing. The Seoul Classics Facebook group, Seoul is in Korea, is a great source of that kind of stuff. And plenty of the members of that group have allowed me to film their cars. I've got another one actually coming up that I will be doing. It's in the local area to where I live. The chap's got something that's not got an MOT at the moment, so we're gonna have to just wait and see how that goes. Right, so we've got 10 people on the stream so far. Nicky Boy says first, as he always does. Thank you, sir. Project MGTF says second. Very good, sir. Simone from Puts on Cortese Classic says, good evening, sir. Good evening, Simone. Paulie Galtieri says, good evening. Good evening, sir. Project MGTF says, a pony would be a great starter for a sleeper. Now, the thing about like an X2 Pony is it's very heavily based on the mid-1980s Mitsubishi Colt, and it uses Mitsubishi Orion engines. I think it's quite easy to put a Sirius engine in that, which would be things like the Lancelot Evolution. So that would be a fantastic thing to drive as a sleeper. Certainly a lot of Proton bits fit as well because they're very similar underneath all those cars. I'm not very good at Serbo Crow, I'm afraid. I'll try my best. Her Voyager Bull Leak? I don't know. I'm very bad at saying Croatian names. I'm sorry. It says, good evening. Best regards from Croatia. Croatia is a very, very lovely country. I've been to Croatia. It was absolutely beautiful. We went to an island called Brijuni, which is off the coast of Croatia, and it was amazing. Beautiful, 27-degree water. So very warm, very sunny, beautiful, beautiful country, Croatia. And they made some cars too. Hopefully, I can drive some cars that were made in Croatia at some point, because there were some. Richard Howlett says, good evening, sir. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, good evening. Chambers 101 says, good evening, sir. We finally got a classic Land Rover on the channel. We were thinking of you when we filmed that one, sir. It was a bit of a challenge for somebody like me to drive that, but we managed it. Mark Z says, good evening, Croxley Green. I know Croxley Green. That is somewhere near Watford. Been there many times. Hooked on Quarters and Classics says hello to Chris. Hello, Chris. Havoye Bulich, I'm probably just butchering that name, I'm afraid. It's very good. Excellent. Paulie Gautier says, I fancy the Daewoo Imperial from 1989 to 1993. Who doesn't, sir? We like that kind of thing. I'd like to get hold of myself a Daewoo Mapsy Na, which was the last variant of a GMT car to be made, I think. They finished in 89. They overlapped a little bit with the Daewoo Racer or later the Sparrow. We got it in next year. Sorry, we got it in this country yet. John Edwards says, good evening, sir. I did love my Hyundai Accent 1.3 poverty spec as my first car. Yeah, we've had a Hyundai Accent on the channel before. We've had an early one, actually. it's a 1.5 auto, sort of one up from the base, actually, the one I had. Uh, chap called Stephen very kindly supplied that, actually. I was looking forward to that. There's not a lot to say, though, about the first generation accents. There's really not a lot to say. I found that I was struggling to find things to actually talk about with that car. There's just not an awful lot to say about them. They're um, you know, more of a kind of white good than a car, but maybe that's interesting actually. Um, Interesting to people. I don't know. Um, let's just remove this spam comment just a second, everybody. Right. Yeah. 1K to get rid of these. There's a couple more of them. We just need to just remove these. Excuse me, everybody. Yeah, we don't have stuff like that around here. I'm afraid we don't abide by it. Okay. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Right, we can continue. Okay. So Julian Knight says, "Guten Abend, Guten Abend, sir." Oh, okay. Simone says, "Chris is Pluto Motors." Okay, well, you're both very welcome. Um, Mark from Bad Book says, "Good evening." Good evening, sir. Project MTF says, "Spam bots." Yeah, I know. Simone says, "I need a moderator." Yeah. Mr. Coleman's offered to do it. Maybe because he's in the Isle of Man at the moment, so he's a bit sort of busy. So he's offered to do it. So maybe we'll get him to get rid of some of this stupid stuff. Right. Okay. Now where were we? Yes. So Hyundai Accent, Hyundai Alpha engine. It's actually the first car I think of that size that Hyundai used their own engine in, because the Lantra had Mitsubishi engines. The Pony and the X2, they had Mitsubishi engines. Um, so yeah, it's you know, one of the first like all Hyundai cars. It's very interesting for someone like me. John Edwards says the accents would make a fine car for Festively Unexceptional. Yeah, that is Festively Unexceptional. So next year in 2023, um, they are enabling cars technically from like 98 and backwards to come. Now you can take a car there that's a lot newer. You see cars there from 2005, 2006. It's not a problem or anything. It's just their own rules state that they're going from about say next year 1968 to 1998 are kind of like the core years for them. Um, and I think those are the only ones that can actually come into the Concours de l'Ordinaire, are the ones from that particular range. Weirdly, you'd have thought that the sort of Simca estate that was there, which was I think a 71 or something like that, would have got more attention than it did. But that Astra Mark III was owned by the chap from Samuel, who's from Scotland, won the event, and obviously before that um, was Mr. John Copeland in his Proton Black Knight Special Edition, which is the 2021 winner. So we know really kind of what the kind of thing they're looking for is by that. Two cars from quite a narrow sort of date range, about 5 years, I think it is. I think the Astra Merit, the one, was either in 94 and 95, from what I remember. Absolute base model, that one. Black Knight was just, one of one special edition. So yeah, it's a great event. Mr. Coleman and I next year will probably be taking the Volvo. That's if we can get these oil leaks on it fixed. Dear, I'm driving it at the moment. I drove it today, actually to church. I drove to church. Terrible weather down here, in the um, central southern England, raining and things. But the car was actually dropping oil all through the car park, because you could see the little pools, like on the video that Mr. Hunter and I did, Fear and Loathing in Last Melbourne, on Jeff Buys Cars channel. So yeah, I still have to get that fixed at some point. Right. Okay. So we got some more in here. Mr. Adam Tom says, "Hello, sir. I'm sorry I'm late. That's fine, sir. Don't worry." Chambers 101 says, "My grandfather had a dark green Hyundai Pony in the 1990s." Oh, excellent. Yeah, the pony I drove was an X2 pony. It was, I think, a 91. That's on No Budget Reviews on the playlist. Project TF says, "Would an MGTF from 2004 be allowed if festival exceptional?" Unofficially, yeah, yeah. Any MG Rover stuff, straight in, no problem. No problem at all. I thought of taking my 45 V6 there, but I've been very careful just to, abide by the guidelines. And Mr. Coleman's Jeep was a 97 that we took. So this year it was the first year you could have taken it. And yeah, it fitted straight in. It was great. But yeah, unofficially, it's not a problem to bring anything up to about 2005, 2006. It's not a problem. I have to go butcher your name again, I'm afraid. I'm so sorry. Herove Leech. I watched your Alpha 166 test. I've actually got three of those on my channel. I've driven three 166s. Or sorry, one of them was the same car twice. Mr. Coleman owned both of them. He's actually just sold his Twin Spark one, but yeah, the 3 litre V6 Sportronic Auto he had was a great car to drive. I drove that a few times. My complimentary objectivity, it really is a driver's car. I can't. Maybe was I being objective about it? I don't know. Possibly. Oh, look, our channel celebrity Sir Depeche Mode has turned up. Good evening to you, Sir Depeche. I was wondering what had happened to you. Sir already has a hot girl. Yes, yes. My lady wife is a very lovely lady, sir. We already have. Well, I already have a lady. Good evening on this festive edition, sir. We shall also be doing another festive edition on the 1st of January. So I hope you'll be joining us for that, sir. Hooked on Cortez and Classics, Simone says, "I would like to drive a Proton Savvy, even though they weren't great." I've driven a Proton Savvy. They're absolutely, utterly awful. Awful to drive. Terrible quality. The ride and handling is actually quite good. The steering is very good. It's the clutch, which is just awful. It's an awful cable clutch. It's a really, really bad car in that respect. The automatic ones and the channel, the viewer who actually supplied the car for the Tweed Jacket Reviews Christmas special and two others that I just filmed. I filmed them on Friday. He actually used to have an automatic Savvy. It's the worst car I'd ever owned. And I don't disagree with that. It's really poor, actually. Paulie Galtieri says, "I remember all the hype about Day in the UK, but showrooms were like PC World, no frills." Yeah, no frills at all. But like white goods. The car's actually pretty good, but the dealership experience was far more interesting actually than the cars, because one was based on a Mark II Cavalier and one was based on a Mark II Astra, effectively. Although the Aspero is a very, very kind of contemporary looking car for the mid-90s. They had an amazing warranty package. You have to look at the reviews I've done of 2 dear next year's Amiga Sparrow to be informed as to what it was, because I did look it up. I can't remember it now, but amazing sort of package you got. You got like a mobile phone. You got, I think, 3-year warranty, 3 years servicing, 3 years AA cover, courtesy cars when you yours got taken in for servicing. Absolutely, utterly amazing. Just incredible. There we go. So Bad Books is talking to Project MGTF about festival exceptional and whether or not you let in. Yeah, it's no problem taking a TF in there. Absolutely no problem. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, "I have an Astra Merit like Sam. It's nowhere near as nice." I've driven 2 Mark III Astras. I've got another one coming up quite soon, actually. I've been offered another one, and I can't turn it down because I really like Mark III Astras. Yeah, Festival Exceptional is really funny because the condition of the cars is exceptional, even if the cars themselves were not in the time. It's a very strange kind of way like that. But you do get like sort of more lived in, shall we say, cars turning up in the general parking area, or either the unexceptional parking as opposed to the Concord L'Ordinaire or the like other car park that I think was like bought a McLaren or something last year, which was really silly. It's parked in the unexceptional parking, which is really strange. So Bad Books. Mark says, a chap I was at college with had a Y-plate Hyundai Pony. Yeah, I think the first year they were sold was in 1882 in this country. I don't think they were sold any earlier than that. So it was very reliable. Yeah, it had a, again, Mitsubishi engine. And we upgraded to a Honda Quintet, sir. Don't talk about Honda Quintets in front of me. I get far too excited. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, I forgot the Proton Savvy existed. Yeah, most people have. And there's quite a good reason for that, because apart from the ride and handling and the steering, which is very, very good, the rest of it, no, not good. No budget reviews is available for you to see the Proton Savvy if you like. But Mark says to Product MTTF, have you had a Mark II Polo? Yeah, driven that particular Mark II Polo. It's on Sensible Secondhand Classics. You want to see it? It's an amazing car, that, because Mark's owned that car from new. It's an '87. He's owned it for 35 years. This is amazing. That's been, I think, Festival Exceptional quite a few times, actually, that car. My father had a pre-facelift Mark II Polo like that one. It was a C or a CL one he had. It was the last car he ever had, because he passed away in 1990. And he didn't have very long, but I do remember it. And then loads of people I knew had them. So many people. My uncle had one. Our childminder had one. My sister's godmother had one. All of those were pre-facelift Mark II Polos in 80s and 90s. Everybody had them in my family. So what else have we got here? Product GTF says Pluto Motors Blackpool. I love a good Astra. There's a gorgeous Mark 1 in white at the Motorist the other week. I've driven a Mark 1 Astra, actually. I drove the one at British Car Journey about a year ago. That's on my channel too. It's on Sensible Secondhand Classics. Right, Simone from Hooked on Classics in Cortina asked a very, very good question. Have you driven the Tata Indica? No, I haven't. I've driven a City Rover, and I don't want to ever drive one ever again. To be honest, I've driven two in my life, and they're the worst car I think I've ever driven in my life. Actually, the Yugo that I filmed a walk around, I might have a go in that at some point. The owner lives very locally to me. I might be able to have a go in that. I kind of don't want to, and I do want to. It's really strange. The interior is not. It's not good. It's not good quality. But he uses that at the moment on a daily basis, because his normal car's broken, so he's driving around in a 1990. It's a 1990 Yugo 45. Fair enough. Richard Howard says, I always like a Hyundai Stella. I really want to drive a Stella. That V8 engine Stella that's around always turns up if that's really exceptional, but I'm very wise to it, because you can hear it coming in, and you know, but it's not got the standard Mitsubishi engine in it. So I'm very wary to that now. Obviously, Ian Seabrooks had a go in that years ago. John Edwards says, I'd like to get my hands on a Perodua Mivi. The Perodua Mivi, or Mivi, I don't know which one it is very similar to the Daihatsu Sirian and Subaru Justy of that era. I've driven the Sirian of that time, and it's all right. It's not a bad car. The engines those are really, really reliable engines. They're very reliable. The main problem with those is rust. Actually, they tend to actually rust quite badly. All those. Project MGTF says to Mark, from the videos I've seen, this is fashion and exceptional. Turnout is quite big. Yeah, I was speaking to the owner of the cars we filmed Christmas special in Edinburgh the other day, and he said that the tickets for Festival Exceptional are on sale now. So there you go. I might actually get hold of one of those, and Mr. Coleman and I can go together again. It's nice having Mr. Coleman there. He sort of takes the stress out of the day, because he drives the car there and back. I don't have to do that, which means I'm a lot less stressed when I get there. So Pluto Motors Blackpool says, I go to the Motorist more often if I live nearer. Yeah, I've been to the Motorist, but I live in Eastleigh. That's next to Southampton, so it's quite a long way to the Motorist. I've been there, but I just don't get very often, because it's about a 4-hour drive or something up there, so I don't go very often. All right. So Chris says, I took my Astra to Festival Exceptional 2021. Yeah, I would have filmed it then, because I filmed I think 6 Shambolic Shuffles last year and 8 this year. So it's every chance that your car's probably in the video from 2021. If it was there, it would be in that video, probably one of them. Project MGTF says, when was it that Proton had a Lotus working on the suspension setups? That was from, I think, the late 90s all the way through to like a couple of years ago when they bought by, I think, was it Geely? Geely, I think, bought them. Yeah, I think Geely bought them, like, the people who own Volvo. So a long time. And they did work on the Savvy and the Gen 2 of a suspension. I've driven a Gen 2 many, many years ago. In fact, Mr. Adam Thomas says, I had a Gen 2 GSX. It was good, but the lack of storage space inside was a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, the one I drove was a Persona. It was the saloon version of the Gen 2, and it had the LPG conversion because until Proton stopped selling cars in this country in about 2012, for the last few years, you could buy a Gen 2 1.6 with an LPG conversion for the same price as a normal one. The problem was you lost most of the boot space because the tank went in where the spare wheel was. The rear space, not good. I remember that. And the build quality is not good, but the power and handling, again, very, very good. Very, very good indeed. Again, tuned by Lotus in that way. Project MGTF. The City Rover even looks like it's given up on life, just parked up, even before you get the confirmation once you start to drive it. I don't want to drive another one of those. It's absolutely awful. You have to watch my video about that on No Budget Reviews. Mr. Richardson drove the same car on the same day because he came down to film the City Rover and my 45 V6 on the same day. He filmed it in place just near Havant, it's by the coast, and he drove a City Rover. And afterwards, he gave it like not that scathing a review, as I'd absolutely slammed into it because having owned 8 Rovers and also with you know, kind of knowledge of what I have about the MG Rover period, it's just a massive disappointment, like in every single way. They're quite fast, and the air conditioning is quite good in them. But apart from that, that's about it. They're reasonably spacious for the size of the car, I suppose. But everything else is just terrible. I don't. There's nothing else to say really. Sir Depeche Mode, our resident channel celebrity, says, you go 45. Now you're talking. Yes, there is a walk around of the 45 on the channel. I did it in, I think, September 2021. Something like that. Julian Knight says, I had a Hyundai Pony F-Reg 1.5 GLS. That was the one known as the Excel in a lot of areas of the country. Electric windows and rev cam with a 5-speed gearbox. Yeah, the one I drove didn't have the electric windows. I don't think it had a rev count. It's a 1.3 one I drove. It was very interesting though. The Modern Hooked on Courtiers and Classics says in 2010 I considered buying a Yugo 45. Yeah, there's probably a few more of them left at the time. They're really, really rare now. Actually, they're incredibly rare in this country. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, yes, he found his Astra in the 2021 Festival of Unacceptable Shambolic Shuffles. Well, that's good detective work, sir. Excellent. Yes, Mr. Richardson and I keep appearing in each other's videos. It's quite funny sometimes when we do that. Flame Pink, yes, a very popular color in the late 90s when cars sort of kind of lost that lacquer on the red paint. Paulie Gartieri says, speaking of Rover, Ryan documentary put in my feed about the Rover P8 development program. The V8 engine Rover was working on, something fantastic, was later cancelled. Why do they need to develop a new V8 engine when the XB8 one that they had was perfectly fine? I don't understand. Never mind. Nicky Boy says, the taxis in Kuala Lumpur run an LPG, so I'm assuming Proton will have quite a good experience of these systems. Yeah, I should think so. And I think it was maybe only in this country that had the LPG ones. I don't know actually. Mark from Bad Books says, a white Yugo, very well worn, arrived on a recovery truck to this year's Festival of Exceptional. Yes, that was not the one that I filmed actually. It's a different one. I don't think that one ran or had no MOT or something. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, Rover had some great ideas, but not enough money. The story of like all the successor companies from maybe BMC all the way through to MG Rover. Sad, really. Project MDTF says flame pink. Yes, brilliant. I remember when I was at school many, many, many years ago. This is about the year 2000. I had a friend whose parents had let's get this right, I think it was a B2 Passat. Yeah, B2 Passat. It was it's quite a late one. I think it was on an E-reg. And it was it was flame pink. Exactly that. It was originally red, but it was really faded. I think his father was an academic or something, and he didn't really care about that kind of stuff because academics aren't that fussed about that kind of thing. I know 'cause my father and my mother were both academics; they weren't fussed about that kind of thing. Um, right, do we have any more questions? I'll just take a sip of this very nice cider. Mm. Cider with cranberry and clementine flavour. Very nice. So one of the cars that I filmed, as we would have seen on the um, community post, yesterday. I think yesterday. Was it Friday? I can't remember. No, it was Friday because I was waiting at the airport, wasn't I? Was a Kia Picanto, the first generation one called the SA. It's a very, very late one, 2011, which was also the year that the next one came in, which was an awful lot better, actually, in many ways than the first one. First one, though, well, you'll see the video soon. And if you're a channel member, you can watch that right now, actually. You can actually watch that video right now because I've watched it for channel members. For the money that they cost, and what they offer, running on E10 petrol's not a problem. I think all of them are ultra low emission don't exempt, and they're very economical. They're quite hardy. They've got a cam belt in them, so we do need changing and stuff. But I think they stand up well to neglected servicing and things like that. And you can pick them up for under £1,000. That and the i10, I preferred the Picanto because the clutch was a bit easier in that than the i10. The i10 that I drove had a clutch that needed adjusted. They're cable clutches in both those cars, and they don't always have the smoothest experiences you would get the hydraulic clutch. But apart from that, they're honestly pretty good. I quite enjoyed it. I don't want to sort of say that I enjoyed it more than the other two cars that the chap actually owned. That's probably going a little bit too far, but I really liked that Kia Picanto. Project MTTF says the Corsa used to fade out. Yeah, that's right. The bright red Corsa that I actually filmed on No Budget Reviews, Corsa B, it was a 1.2 Merit E-Drive. It's a very specific, rare model, the one I drove. And I have seen the one Mr. Richardson on Furious Driving had on his channel too. I was actually for once first out of the gate with that. Very often when you see cars appearing at the same time on different channels, it's just often a coincidence. So Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars filmed a car on his channel this week, and I happened to film one the other day as well. It's just the way that it goes sometimes. It's not a conspiracy behind all this, but just something happens. But yeah, 1.2 Merit E-Drive. It was virtually perfect. There's no fade on the paint at all. Bright red, no fade. Fantastic. Simone Hunt on Classic Cordia says Lotus in now Malaysian. They're not actually. They are owned by, I think it's Geely Automotive rather than Proton. Proton don't own them anymore, I'm afraid. Project MDTF says lots of trouble, usually serious. Yes, of course. Polygaltieri, we were talking about Rover P8 here. It was Rover's own 4.4 litre 32 valve engine. That's very impressive, isn't it? Project MDTF says my father had a Lotus Elite a while ago, a lovely thing with plenty of style. That's interesting. Lotus Elite. I assume that was the 70s, 80s one, not the 50s one. Blackpool says I had a red Corsa B that faded as badly as the Astra. Oh dear, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Bit of a flame pink there, I take it. Yeah, I can see why. The Corsa B is quite a charming little car. The early ones, like the one I drove, they're quite charming. There's something about them that, the Nova. I've also driven a Nova, and the Nova's great. But one thing I noticed about the Nova, the brakes are terrifying. They're absolutely and utterly terrible in a Nova. The awful brakes. The cause is another problem. The brakes are a lot better, despite the fact that the underneath of the car is quite similar. Chose 101 says I did well driving the Land Rover. Well, thank you, sir. I didn't think I did very well, but I didn't crash or stall, so that's probably good. I don't think I exceeded 30 miles an hour either. So Paulie Gartieri says, Hubner off-white beige is another colour of a faded type. Yeah, I suppose it is. I prefer beige in leather interiors personally, but there we go. Project MGTF says the Elite was 70s, 80s pointy one. Yeah, okay, no one. Simone Hutton Classics, Hutton Cuties and Classics says, I can't believe Lotus is now making an electric crossover blob like all the other companies. Do you know the reason for that? It's because they make a lot of money, and we wouldn't have companies like Lamborghini and Porsche around if they didn't make that kind of stuff at the moment. Because it's what people want to buy. It makes them money, and so they can make the other cars like this. You know, they just released a new one which got a petrol engine, and then there's the electric super hypercar, I think, as well. And without that sort of stuff, Rolls Royce is the same with the Cullinan. You don't have to like that stuff, and in some ways, I don't like it. I don't like the Lamborghini era. It's really horrible to someone like me, but it makes money to them to be able to buy to sell the other cars because they don't make a lot of money on those. It's all they sell loads more of that sort of stuff than they do the sports cars that we know them for. That's the reason they make them. It's there's a video I got coming up on the Ray Bay blog about why new cars are so expensive. And a lot of it is about the fact that the cheap cars that they used to make just didn't make any money for them. And so they have to kind of make cars people want to buy. And although that's bad for some of us who prefer them not to see them, it's the only way that they can just keep going. It's kind of a little bit of a shame in a way, but that's realities of business and economics, I'm afraid. It's not saying I want to buy or drive any of these cars. I'm just saying they keep the companies going. That's really what they're there for. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, I don't understand why the Corsa B gets so much stick. I don't understand either. I think it's just they were just, I don't know, really cheap cars, and Novas weren't very loved for a long time. And then people used to modify them. Sometimes some people like that sort of stuff, some people don't. Project MGTF says the Nova brakes are bad because boy races only use the handbrake. Well, the Nova I drove was a Nova Trip 1 litre saloon, so I don't think any boy racers are going to want that. Amazing condition. A chap called Ben owns that. He lives in Yorkshire. Filmed that on a ridiculously hot day. I think it was like 33 degrees or something that day, but I filmed it. Not very fast, but just what it wasn't, because the brakes were shocking. One corner I went around, I was just pressed to brake, and I was expecting it to slow down. It just didn't. So just as well, the steering was accurate in that. Otherwise, you would have had a problem there. John Edwards says, can one really discuss Korean cars without paying homage to the Hyundai Coupe? In my opinion, the first Korean car that really competed with the mainstream Europeans. The first Hyundai Coupe, I think when it came out in 1996, I think it came out. That was basically a second generation Lancia underneath. And I have driven a second generation Lancia, and they did use the 1.6 in that car. Mr. Richardson obviously used to own one of those. We actually took that to the Centerpod Challenge in 2019, and he amazingly got that car ready. I mean, I think he paid 200 quid for it or something. I don't know if it's still going, that one, but it was interesting. I should have asked him to have a go in it. But in those days, I didn't actually have no budget reviews as a format. Otherwise, I probably would have filmed some of the other cars that were a challenge. Bit of a shame, really. It's on Cortez and Classic Simone says crossovers are too big and wasteful. I mean, we got a Sanyong Tivoli. That's technically a crossover, but Sanyong don't make anything else other than cars like that. Ours are 2-wheel drive because I don't normally need 4-wheel drive. Although winter we've had down here, we don't normally get winters like this. it's been like -3 or something when my lady has been going to work and things like that. And the amount of rain that we had a bit early this year was so crazy. I'm glad of the extra wading depth in the Tivoli, to be honest. And I find it very comfortable. I drive it on the motorway journeys. It's got everything that you need for not a lot of money, really. I think it was 19 new. We paid 13.7 for it in 2020, and we've got an ownership report coming up on that soon. And quite like it, really. It didn't do very well in 2021 when the clutch cylinder failed at around about Liverpool when I was driving. But that's really been the only problem we've had. Even Mr. Coleman actually services that for a pretty good car. So will that appear on the Soul Classics Facebook group at some stage in about 20 years? Possibly, I don't know. Nicky Boy says, a bit off topic, does Lotus still use Toyota engines in its petrol cars? There is one, yes. I can't remember the name of the new one. I think it's the Emira, I think it's called. I'm very bad on sort of sports cars and supercars, but that's still got an option from Toyota 3.5 V6 that I think using the Camry. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, I like the second generation Hyundai Coupe. Yes. JM on Cars, Mr. Martin, he had one of those in his channel recently. I don't think it was the V6. I think it was a 4-cylinder one. I quite like the look of that. I'd like to drive one of those, actually. It's like anything else. It depends if somebody offers it to me most of the time. To an extent, I can ask. So, Summit Garage, if there's a new MG out, I could ask John Newey, do you have a new MG that I can drive? I can do that. Or I can perhaps, with a couple of press contacts, say, I'd like to borrow a press car. That's not very often that happens. It's very difficult to get press cars, actually, which is why events like the SMMT Drive Day in Basingstoke in September is so good, because I filmed 7 cars in one day, and we managed to do them. It's great for getting new cars out. Not all of you want to watch new cars, I realise that. But one of the cars we filmed that day, the MG4, was one of the best videos on the channel this year. So some people do want to watch them. That's why I keep filming them. If you don't want to watch them, that's not a problem. We actually will be doing a video soon. I've recorded most of it, where I talk about the top 10 surprisingly popular and unexpectedly unpopular videos on the channel of 2022. So you'll get to see that. There are some caveats, but I'll go into that. But a lot of the videos on there, it sometimes doesn't matter what car it is or how much it costs or something. Sometimes the videos are successful anyway. I think some of them you'll be quite surprised as to what the most popular and least popular reviews we tend to just look at are, because I didn't expect it to be like that. I had to look quite carefully at the details, but it surprised me, actually. Bad Books says to Simone, 4x4 Porsches scaring the road. I don't really like those, but again, they've made more money for Porsche than anything else recently, so I suppose they've got some reason to exist. Hyundai Coupe second generation was good. Yeah, Simone says. Yeah, I'd really like to drive one. Sodapesh Mode says Lotus currently uses Mercedes AMG source power plants in the Emira. Yes, they do. Yes, there is a Toyota V6 and then also a 4-cylinder Mercedes AMG. Absolutely correct. You're absolutely right about that. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, anyone with the Hyundai S Coupe? Yes, S Coupe or Scoop in America. I really got close to getting one of those on the channel a couple of years ago. They're very, very, very rare. Mr. Richards actually beat me to it. He got one on his channel. I really, really was wanting to drive that. I think it was an auto one he had or something. So here we go. Chambers 101. I have a soft spot for those old Daewoo Corando or Ssanyon Corando Jeep things. Yeah, they were sold in the 90s and early 2000s in this country. They had a weird dash where you could put the steering wheel for right or left-hand drive at various points. You could see where they could put them for different markets. That's interesting. Project MGTF said the Generation 1 Coupe looks like they purposely removed all the straight lines from the design. Yeah, they went in for this sort of slashes, sort of Chris Bangle type stuff on those. John Edwards says the Honda Coupe S3 is universally loved, but the previous marks were also well received when the Korean cars were laughing stock and cheap and nasty. Yeah, we're getting back onto what the theme of tonight is. Absolutely, I've driven a lot of this old Korean and Malaysian stuff. I've driven. I owned a first generation Proton. It was a 1993 Proton 1.3 GLS saloon. I paid £200 for it. It'd been in the same family since new. It was all right. The doors are really thin. Like if you have an accident, you're going to die pretty much. The doors are so thin that you don't even realise sometimes you've actually closed the doors. It doesn't need to make a difference whether kind of moving or not. It's a bit scary in that way, actually. So yeah, interesting. What I got to the Hyundai Stella was good in high spec. I really wanted to drive one of those. They're basically a Mark V Cortina, sort of upgraded essentially. Um, Bad Book says the Toyota engines Lotus use, Toyota won't guarantee them, even though Lotus do work directly for Toyota engines. Interesting. And Project MGTF says channel analytics is a deep rabbit hole to go down. Yes, I know it is. Get lost in there. I mean, I've got over 1,200 videos on this channel, so I mean, I get lost in there, very lost. John Edwards says, I personally can't believe the rapid advances from the 2000 W Reg accent, that's the Mark II accent, to the likes of the Kia Ceed. Yes, yes. When the Kia Ceed came out in 2006, it was really quite an advance. I really like the first generation Ceeds. I sourced 3 of those for clients in the early days of my business. And Hyundai i30s, again, a very similar car. I'm hoping to actually film one of those quite soon. That's another car that I actually sourced. And client who's a friend of mine, she's had it 4 years, 4.5 years, and she's still got it. It's the days of that 2018 when the cars were actually kind of reasonably priced. The car that she's got wouldn't be worth too much less now than what she paid for it, which is ridiculous. But that's still going. Hopefully we'll get on that. There might even be next week we film that actually. It depends on some things, but I'm hoping to get hold of that. And I sourced 2 of those. I think, yeah, within a couple of years of each other. I think, yeah, they're not bad. They're not the most interesting or stylish cars, but a lot of people don't want interesting or stylish cars. They want something that works. And Kia Ceed or a Hyundai i30, they just work. I prefer the Ceeds just because of the way they look. I think the Ceeds look a bit nicer than the i30s personally, but they're pretty much the same. And yeah, John was going to say that the modern Kia is genuine Ford rivals. I'd much rather have a Kia than a Ford, to be honest. Actually, personally, it's just me. Simone from Hooked on Cortis Classics asked a very, very good question, and the answer is quite simple, actually. What do you think of the Hyundai Getz? Have a look at the No Budget Reviews episode of that. I filmed one in January. So there we go. John Edwards says, I simply can't believe that the Hyundai Atos is being put out, and now the Kia electric cars top of their class. Yeah, they got some very good ones. Hopefully, we'll be able to drive some more Kia. I did drive the current generation Sportage a couple of months ago. It's not been the most successful video, but James Martin drove one when they came out in January 22. I think they came out. He drove one at press launch, and he said have a go at one. Yeah, it's pretty good for that type of car. Adam Tom says, I must be mad, but I do like the Hyundai Mika. I almost bought one of those earlier this year. One came out locally, and it wasn't very expensive, but yeah, I quite like the Amigas. I must have a go at one. If I can get one, it's just like anything else. It just depends if somebody offers me one. And of course, if you want to have your car on the channel, then please do send me an email at japl745@hotmail.com. So virtually all the videos that I do, you can see the email address in there. Mark from Bad Book says the Generation 1 Hyundai Coupe has got a breakthrough in the day. Yes, it was. Again, I really want to drive one of those. I really want to. Now, I've done a Lancia. The Lancia I didn't think was that great in many ways. The owner, I think called Simon, the owner of that Lancia, the second generation one, not the first one. The first one's actually better because it's a Mitsubishi based. The second one just is a bit disappointing, really, in quite a few ways. But yeah, that's what it was based on the second generation Lancia. I would expect that to be a bit better in some ways. Project MGTF says there's a hot i30, isn't there? Yes, the i30N. It's been very, very well received. Since it came out about 2017, I'd like to say, came out, I think. Sir Depeche Mode says, our resident channel celebrity, says, it's not looking very festive in the room, sir. Well, sir, we don't put our decorations up in this house until 24th of December. That's why, sir. Project MGTF's, okay, it's just replying to Sir Depeche Mode. John Edwards says, the modern i30N is a track weapon, much as we drive responsibly and moderately on this channel. We do indeed so. We drive moderately and responsibly on this channel. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, Ed from Twin Cam drove an i30N in one of his videos. Yes, he did. So Depeche Mode says, Christmas jumper next time. I'm afraid, sir, you'll be denied the pleasure of Christmas jumper because not only do I not own a Christmas jumper and never have or ever worn one, but the next live stream will be on the 1st of January, and that'll be over for then, so we won't be having any of those, I'm afraid. Simone from Hooked on Cruising Classics says, I like the second generation Kia C''D. Yeah, it's a good car as well. I really want to get hold of one of those for review. They're just coming into sort of sensible secondhand reviews territory now. Certainly the Mark 1s definitely are. I mean, I've done one already. An owner of the Peugeot 406 Saloon that I did on No Budget Reason in 2020, he has a Kia Proceed, which is the three-door version of the Mark 1 Seed, and it's a really late one. It's a 2012 or something, I think, his one. And that was in beautiful condition. It's perfect. Really nice to drive. The biggest problem was the lack of rear parking sensors on the particular model. I drove the 2 model, but if you had a 3 or something, or I think there are other models, you could get parking sensors. Apart from that, the car was virtually perfect. I prefer a 5-door because it's a bit more practical. But apart from that, it's really hard to criticize something like that. Very hard. Sabotage Mode wants more festive action. John Edwards says, I like to chat about my seed, but I suspect the bouncers would drag me off this channel for discussing a certain type of fuel. Yes, indeed, sir. We don't talk about diesels on this channel. So, yes, of course, Simone knows the rules. Thank you, Simone. Project MGTF says, my new project won't be allowed then. Yes, no discussions of that. Chambers 101 says, are you going to any shows over the festive period? Well, there aren't actually that many car shows at this time of year, but you were seen from the video yesterday we did at Middle Wallop at the Army Flying Museum. But it's really hard to stage shows because, I mean, when I set off in the Volvo yesterday morning to go to the show, it was -3. I spent 10 minutes scraping the thing. That's got a reasonably good heater in it. I mean, goodness knows what it's like for something about 61 Sunbeam Rapier that was there, or the Morgan that didn't have any doors or windows or roof or anything. So it's a bit tricky, but I have actually got one planned for Boxing Day. There is one that I'm aware of, and we shall be filming it. A festive shambolic shuffle, which I know what if you like, and also we should also be filming an event on New Year's Day. Pluto Motors Blackpool says, I could talk about the 500 with a forbidden fuel engine. Sir, didn't you just hear what I said? I'm afraid we cannot talk about it. Simone said, what about by forbidden fuel? I'm afraid not. John Edwards says his car is currently powered by reindeers and festive spirit. Excellent. That's the way to talk about it, sir. Thank you very much. Sir Depeche. I noticed at the weekend a couple of local supermarkets had none of forbidden fuel. Beginning of the end for the filthy stuff. Well, sir, we've been kind of I don't know, not talking about those engines for 4.5 years now. I think maybe we were a bit prescient in that way. Project MGTF says shows normally end in November, don't they? It depends. I mean, the biggest show of the year is NEC Classic Car Show in November. It's the biggest one of the year. And then, of course, Practical Classics restoration shows in March. And so I'll hopefully be booking into that quite soon. Yeah, so, but there is another show actually in February that I'm going to go to, because that will be, and you'll be pleased to know, Havers viewers, the 4th anniversary of the Shambolic Shuffles will be celebrated at that particular show in February. I know that some of you like shambolic shuffles, and that's very good. Fabric says Proton did a pickup, the Jumbuck or Arena in some markets, based on the first Persona, or Wira, they called it later. Probably the farmers in East Anglia, but they've all rusted away. On the Isle of Wight, there's plenty of those around. I kept passing one when I was filming the stuff in the mini Isle of Wight event. Yeah, they are around. You just have to look out for them, I think. Pluto Motors Blackpool, the Forbidden Fuel Gene Special Edition. Yes, I know. I've seen one of those. We still can't talk about it, though, I'm afraid. I'm very aware of those. We actually covered that particular trim level in the video I did of the Fiat 500 in September 2021. Simone says, I'm booked to NEC. I see sort of out sleep. Yeah, I normally book into a premiere in Coventry for that. There's two I normally use, and then I get the train, and I stay somewhere near the station to get the train in. That's for me worked out to be the best solution because the car park at the NEC is so ridiculously expensive, and it's often difficult to get in. You've got a queue to get in, and then sometimes when you go out, they send you out the wrong way, so you can't get back to the motorway to the way you want to go. So I just take the train. It costs, I think it's £3.20 a day return on the train. It works pretty well for me. That's what I do. Mr. Planet Man says, I love my K13. I've seen about some Micra. They sold them here from 2015 to 19. Ride is it's a bit higher than other markets to accommodate tyre changes in the winter. That's interesting. Only 1.6 of a low ratio gearbox. Yeah, the engine options over here were a lot lower. I think it was a 1.2. There might even have been a smaller one than that, actually. John Edwards says, I'm tempted to purchase a no-budget price city cars and run around in the cost of festive spirit. It's too expensive these days. Well, we can't talk about festive spirit anyway, can we, sir? And you'll be pleased to hear that the Kia Picanto episode of No Budget Reviews is coming soon. In fact, we've got more episodes of No Budget Reviews coming even before that. I hope you enjoy them, sir. Project MGTS, how do you get to display the NEC Classic Car Show? You have to, have a stand. You have to actually pay for a stand. And often you have to actually apply like a year in advance. I've been toying with the idea, and Mr. Hunter keeps getting stands. So of going on a stand with Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars, and then just maybe ask a couple of people to fill the stand up. They've got 4 spaces and a couple of others, because if I'm there, I won't be on the stand most of the time anyway, because I'll be spending like 22 sort of videos going around that. So, but that's a possibility. You have to apply like about a year in advance. Paulie Galtieri says, we don't talk about the New Professionals or Shane Ritchie. No, we don't. We don't talk about the New Professional. We don't talk about Shane Ritchie or the Minder remake, because they're not good. Backfill says, I like No Budget Reviews. Lots of people love No Budget Reviews. It's just a shame you don't like Tree Jacket Reviews more, because I'll be doing a video about this next week, but we might actually be ending Tree Jacket Reviews entirely, apart from maybe Christmas specials from next year. We might just stop making them, because problem is, in making an episode, I worked this out. We've just done 3 of them. And if you look at the cost it takes to make it, it's about a month and a half to 2 months worth of channel income to make one episode. That's not particularly economical, is it? Whereas if I do 22 shambolic shuffles at something like the NEC, I don't get all my money back filming that, but I do get a fair bit of it back, a fair percentage of it. So because people want to watch no budget reviews and shambolic shuffles, I will make them. It really pains me to say this, because as far as I'm concerned, Tree Jacket Reviews is the best format we've got, and it's the reason the channel started. But I've had to just make this very difficult decision, along with Mr. Franks, that we're just going to have to stop making them, because you don't really want to watch them seemingly, and they don't come anywhere close to making your money back. I've looked at all the episodes you've ever made of those, and not a single one has even made half its money back, which is a real shame. Yeah, but that's the way that it is. I wish we could make more, but just the way that it is. Some of you will probably be rejoicing about that, but it personally makes me very sad because we spend a lot of effort and time making them. I get someone else to film and edit them, which makes it looks an awful lot better. Even if people say to me, "Oh, we can't tell the difference between no budget using Twin Jacket reviews," that makes me and Mr. Fractal very sad because we deliberately make them a lot better because no budget reviews is no budget reviews, and it's done a certain way. So anybody who says that, I tend to just tell them like take a closer look at them because there's a real difference between them. Actually, there's a real difference in quality, and that's what you get for hiring a professional videographer to make your videos. You get much better results, but it's just the way that it is. Sometimes you have to make running a business or a channel that's monetized. You've got to make decisions like that. Project MTTF is where we talk about not mentioning certain fuel. We haven't mentioned a certain fuel, sir, from the first video on the channel in September of 2018. Just blame the ultra emission zone and various other policies like clean air zones around the country and the mayor of London and all his friends. It's every single year that becomes more relevant. I used to get laughed at so much for doing it, but it's just so relevant now because these killings are popping up everywhere. And of course, Sadiq Khan's not a friend of the channel, I'm afraid, but so many people are right upset by it, and rightly so. They should be. Simone Hunt on Classics says, I like the chat at the NEC, sitting in the car, talking to be Mr. Hunt and Jeff Buys Cars. Yeah, Mr. Hunt and I don't do a lot of videos together. It's quite hard to coordinate our diaries. But when we do stuff, we really enjoy ourselves. The Fear and Loathing in Les Malvern video that we did last month, it's on his channel, on Jeff Buys Cars channel, was hilarious. It was really funny and a really enjoyable day. The weather was appalling that day, but it just went really well. We just sort of get on quite well, even if we didn't sort of pre-plan too much with that. We just sort of got on them. We just do it. I'm glad that you liked that because we enjoyed ourselves that day. Richard House says, I like Tree Jacket reviews. Yeah, well, we've got 2 more coming. We've got Christmas special. We've also got another one from Dudley, which hasn't been released yet. So we've still got a couple. We might make just like one a year or something, but we just won't be making them regularly because it's just kind of simple sort of economics, I'm afraid. Mark from Bad Book says he likes it too, and I enjoy hamming it up. If you like what happens when Mr. Franks and I ham it up, and you'll love the Christmas special because we went all out on that to make it as stupid as possible, and it is very stupid. It's still a car review, but it's very stupid, and because we knew that might be the last one ever, we deliberately kind of went after this sort of sort of go for broke kind of attitude with it. Pretty much Blackpool says, I think people like the raw, unscripted home general. I mean homegrown. Like jacket reviews as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind people liking no budget reviews. I've made tons of them. I think I've made like 140 of them or something. Simone Hudson Cordy has asked, "What's the ugliest non-British car I've ever driven?" Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure actually. I don't know. Proton Savvy's quite ugly. That's not a particularly good looking car. It looks just a bit odd. Possibly that there's others. I just can't think of any at the moment. Project MGTF says a Christmas special has a musical number. I'm afraid not. It has stupidity, but not musical numbers in it. Paulie Galtieri says, I like a nice tweed jacket. Yes, I've got a nice tweed jacket myself. And also the reviews. Yes, that's very good, sir. Pretty much Blackpool says, I should have said in general. That's fine. Phones are funny sometimes. Mark from Babbitt says, no budget reviews are very rare in your cast. I don't think we did no budget reviews on your cast, sir. We did Sensible Secondhand Classics. Um, and the mount jumped straight off the dash. Or the mount jumped off the windscreen, and the UNOS, it just jumped straight off because the structural rigidity didn't quite kind of agree with that mount, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, that's an hour. I think that's quite enough for one evening. I'll just take another sip of this cider. Mm. So thank you ever so much indeed for watching this slightly less than professional live stream number 33, which definitely been non-professional tonight. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and we shall see you again on New Year's Day for more unscripted and unfiltered conversation.